These are the blind, those who find it theirs to live in darkness. Men who once had the precious gift of sight. Men who never again will thrill at the sight of trees, mountains, and the rising of the sun. Who are never again to know the face of loved ones. Hearing and feeling the sounds of life, but not seeing. And the greatest tragedy is that George Willoughby need not be blind today, nor young Bill Hutchins, nor should this man, Big Steve Kovac, be in the tortured position of not knowing his condition until his bandages are removed.
Well, Doc, might him be okay?
We'll know more in a few days.
Thanks.
Can't you tell me anything more?
No, they need not be in the unenviable condition they find themselves today. But George, Bill, and Steve are casualties of thoughtlessness. Of course, at the shipyards and in the shops, they call them accidents. Accidents? Well, let's see. Take George Willoughby, for instance. Certainly he knew his job. He'd been doing the same work for almost 15 years. He always saw to it that the wheel guard was in place so as not to endanger himself and his fellow workers. Yes, everything was always pretty much in order with George. That is, with the exception that George usually kept his goggles tucked away in his back pocket. That very afternoon, after lunch, it happened. Metal particles in both eyes. It was one of those unusual cases. Vision totally destroyed. Doomed to solid blackness to the end of his days. George Willoughby learned the value of wearing goggles the hard way, when it was too late. There was a lot of kidding the day that sign went up in the dipping shed. As a matter of fact, there was usually a lot of kidding about a good many of the posters that went up. But then again, maybe they did do some good. For whether they knew it or not, the men took the advice of those signs seriously. Wore their rubber mask-type goggles to ensure maximum protection from splashing acids and chemicals. And that went for young Bill Hutchins, too. You can't be too careful when you're working with acids. But one day, Bill had a lot of more important things on his mind. And when he showed up for work, he didn't have his goggles. Of course, he knew better than to work without them. But it was a lot of trouble going for a replacement pair. And, well, he wouldn't forget them tomorrow anyway. Tomorrow? Well, tomorrow was too late in Bill's case. He forgot, took a chance, and lost. Lost the gift that can never be regained, and all due to thoughtlessness. Here's one that can be plenty tough on the eyes, too. Welding. Not only on the welders, but on other workers who might happen along without the proper eye protection. That's the reason for safety enclosures. The reason they must always be used. For acetylene welding, cutting and burning operation, cup goggles which allow an ample flow of air and exclude injurious light rays and sparks are adequate protection. But on arc welding jobs, Helmets with protective glare goggles underneath to safeguard when the helmet is raised are vitally essential. That's where Big Steve Kovac got his. Steve was always a careful worker, kept screens up to protect his fellow workers, always wore his welding helmet and goggles underneath. But one day, Steve's goggles gave him trouble. He'd neglected cleaning them for a long time, and they got fogged up on him. Steve knew the thing to do was to take the time and have his goggles cleaned and sterilized. But it was almost quitting time, so he figured he might as well stick it out. He'd remember to cut off his arc before raising his helmet. Well, Steve was just finishing up when the whistle blew. Then it happened. For 10 minutes of seemingly innocent carelessness, days of anxious waiting. And even then, who knows? What does it mean to lose the gift of sight? Perhaps you'd like to know. All right. To give you just a faint idea, suppose we try a little experiment. I've marked off 30 seconds on the clock. During those 30 seconds, I want you to close your eyes. Close them and keep them closed. Don't cheat now. Ready? All right, close. Uh-oh, keep them closed. Time. Well, that was only 30 seconds. Only half a minute. How do you think you'd enjoy spending the rest of your life in such blackness? You wouldn't? Well, the only sure way is to play it safe. When babbiting, wear your helmet. Should even a drop of water fall into the molten metal or water condense in the mold, the hands, face, and eyes may be splattered. For any process where protection from gases, fumes, and liquids is required, goggles must be of rubber frame type, tightly fitting and resistant to chemicals. Light, comfortable face shields should always be worn for woodworking, spot welding, and light grinding. While for heavy impact grinding processes, goggles with super tough lenses and adjustable bridge are the only sure way to protect the eyes against the possibility of heavy impact. Don't take any chances with your eyesight. Get to know the goggles section. Get to know the man in charge. Replacement goggles are always available. Ask for them. Make certain your goggles fit properly. If they don't, have them checked and adjusted. There is a particular type of goggle for every type of work where there exists the slightest possibility that eye accidents may occur. Get them and wear them. And not only get them and wear them, keep them clean. Keep the lenses free of all dirt, oil, and fog. Every so often, sterilize them as a safeguard against possible eye infections. No matter what your job, if you think you should have goggles, ask for them. Wear them. Wear them properly. And keep them clean. Always remember that the one who benefits most by wearing goggles is you. Don't be one of those people who sometimes forgets. It doesn't always end in tragedy, but it can. George Willoughby can tell you.
My eyes! My eyes!
And so can Bill Hutchins.
Oh!
And so can Big Steve Kovac. Don't work without your goggles. Don't let yourself slip up for any reason. Don't let happen to you what happened to me. Oh, I guess I forgot to tell you. I'm George Willoughby. So you see, I know what I'm talking about. I'm blind, a casualty of carelessness. Take a tip from me. Wear your goggles. Play it safe.